Well, I'm so excited, you guys. I got a whole box of my books yesterday in the mail, and I hope you get yours soon. If you want to hear me talk about it, then you can go back and you can watch that Talk Shop Live that I did the other night. You can watch it. Stuart will put a link above. You can still watch it, and you can still buy an autographed copy through that link. But I'm really excited about it, and I do hope, it was an act of love, so I do hope that you guys will take a look at it, and also hopefully be pleased that I dedicated it to all of you followers and you viewers who have been so supportive and so kind over the past several years. So there you go. There is my shout out to you guys. So today's topic is something that I have really thought about, and I've been thinking about it particularly this month, and that is, what is the biggest secret to gardening success? And at least in my garden, I think the biggest secret, and sometimes particularly now, the biggest challenge to gardening success is getting things established. Whether it is a perennial, a shrub, a tree, an annual, your success is going to depend on getting those things established before either it gets too cold or before it gets too hot. And it is all encompassing. I mean, that one concept is all encompassing. To get something established and get it established successfully means that you need to take into account where you're planting it, what your soil prep is it zone appropriate? But it's also kind of a challenge because with temperatures doing what they've been doing recently, we've had such extreme fluctuations in temperature. There has been no consistency. So the entire garden and this gardener are very, very confused. I've never seen the bulb foliage quite so kind of tatty looking. It's because one day it will be 84, and 2 days later it'll get down to 16, and maybe with some snow or sleet. It's just really hard for things to accommodate these real temperature swings, and it's been the biggest challenge I've had this year, and why I really am not sure what to expect out of the garden this spring. But it also makes it hard to get things established because, for example, this time of year I'd already be thinking about applying a liquid feed to my pansies and to the cooler annuals that like to bloom in the spring, so that they would be putting on a good show as soon as the tulips and everything else comes into bloom. But this year I'm afraid to do that. So I really don't want to encourage any more new growth or even blooming to get them really well established and looking good, because this coming week we're supposed to get snow and it's supposed to get down to 16, and I think 2 days before that it's supposed to be up to 85. So it really is, it's very vexing because you just kind of don't know what to do. So for me, that is the biggest secret and the biggest challenge, is getting things established. And to the extent I can do that, my garden will be beautiful. So for example, what do I mean by that? So I've talked a lot about the poppies and maybe the foxglove in the front, and I'd love to get a beautiful stand of them established from seedlings, because for me, that's how they perform the best. But in order to do that, the seeds have to germinate, they have to persist, and then they have to grow. And right now things might germinate, but then we'll have some kind of sleet or snow or high wind on an inordinately warm day, and even sometimes with mulch or what I do to protect them, the seedlings just die. They can't get themselves established to really start growing. Likewise, some of the things that I had planted back in this area, after the ice storm, of last year that happened in October, I then came through here and I planted a bunch of azaleas and things like that, largely encore azaleas. But some of the things that I planted in this area, I couldn't get them established even with fall planting before we had that extreme cold front that came through in February down to, like, was it -13? It was -13 last February. So I couldn't get them established so that they could endure those really low temperatures. So anything that I can do, that you guys can do in your own gardens to get things established so that they can handle any kind of really inclement weather or extreme temperatures or extreme drought, get a root system established, get foliage established, and get a good form established. To the extent you are successful at that, you will be successful at gardening. But here's my question of the day. I want to know where you live, what is the most difficult, the thing that stands in your way of any kind of plant getting established. What is your biggest challenge? For me, it's been these real extreme temperature fluctuations, but let me know what it is at your house. Okay, so a lot of the things, activities that I would normally be doing right now, like, taking off and clipping off some of the dead foliage on the pansies and things, I'm just not going to bother with that because it's going to get really cold later in the week. I'm just glad we finally got some rain. I need to replace these dead boxwoods in my urns. I will pull them out, but I'm probably not going to plant them for a while, again, because I think the temperatures are just going to fall off the chart, and then the next day it'll be 85, and that's just very stressful on them. So I'm going to really hold off on doing that. Likewise, by now, normally my window box is looking really beautiful. You can probably kind of sense a little bit of the frustration in my voice, can you, Stuart? Normally by now the window box is really beautiful, but again, because we've had these huge temperature swings and things, they just haven't been able to really come into their full glory. One thing out here I did want to show you, because I wanted to give you guys a big thank you and a big shout out. I talked in one of my walkabouts several weeks ago how there was a couple of boxwoods in here. These boxwoods have gotten so large that there were too many of them. And so I did take one of the really large ones out, and in their place I repositioned and transplanted some foxglove. I don't know, Stuart, if you can see, but I transplanted some foxglove over here, and to the extent I can get them established, they will perform more beautifully, less beautifully, more dramatically, less dramatically, all depending on the degree to which they can get established. But I'm also thinking that there's still one too many boxwoods in this area, and I'm thinking about taking out another one, and I would like your thoughts on that, because I think I would be able to have a little bit more annual color in here, maybe in the summertime, but I'd like your thoughts on that, and if so, which one of these I should take out. I'm kind of thinking about this one that's right in front of the lantern. I might do that, however, after all of the tulips and everything are out of bloom, so I don't have just a great big blank spot in the garden bed. So that is what is going on in the front yard. Now let's go to the backyard. Well, I may be being cautious and a little bit conservative about things like replacing the boxwood balls in the urns on my front porch and things like that. I'm just a little bit insecure about doing that this year, this early. But there are other things that I can do when I just want to come outside and just have a meditative moment, because right now it's very, very still. There is no wind. It's chilly, but there's lots of bird song, and it's really a pleasant time to be outside. So in those little captured moments, when I've got 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there, there are some little chores that I like to tackle. And right now I have a lot of this nasty little grass, this poanna, and that's Poannua. It's this tiny little tufted grass that comes up, and it looks like it's going to be real grass, but this is a weed, and you don't want it to get established because it will go to seed and it will go everywhere. And once it gets inside your turf, it's really a problem. So right now is a good time when there's not much else going on. I'm still not even going to go ahead and plant. And they say around like, oh, this time of year is when I typically start planting out some lettuces and things like that, and I can broadcast some seed for my cool season leafy greens. But this year I'm even a little bit hesitant to go ahead and do that because I just think the weather is just going to be a little too iffy. So while I'm holding off on doing that, I can kind of still scratch my gardening itch by doing things like this. And I can come in, I can pull this stuff out, get this area, take a segment at a time, get this area cleaned out, put some fresh gravel on it, and I feel like I'm making some headway in my garden even though I'm not going to be planting a bunch of things. Now, next week, I've got on my calendar, since I'm postponing planting a few things, but next week I definitely have on my calendar that I'm going to start planting some of my nasturtium seeds and also some sweet peas and some regular peas. And that's because I want to do that. It'll be still, the rule of thumb is to do that around St. Patrick's Day. Here in Oklahoma, typically a little bit sooner. So I'm going to start doing that and hope that by next week, after we get through the temperature roller coaster that is this week, temperatures will moderate enough, and next week I'll be able to start thinking about planting some of those cool season greens in beds and in situ, in other words, directly into the garden beds and into the potager. Now, obviously, right now, if you wanted to start some things indoors, you can do that. But I do a limited amount of that because I don't have a greenhouse. I don't have a lot of space to really nurture them until they get big enough to plant out. So for me, I don't do a whole lot of that. But obviously, if you have the room and you have the inclination, then it's a great time to do that. And you just decide when you're going to start those seeds by counting back, looking at the date on the back of the package and when you can put them out, and then counting back before then to know when you need to start those seeds. So that's all kind of stuff that you can find on any gardening site that is talking about seed starting practices. Now, one other thing that I'm thinking about is a concept that I just heard on a podcast, and it was actually a podcast about a completely different topic. It was one on finance, I think. But it talked about the concept of a sweet spot. And without realizing it, I think over the past 2 years, what I'm really trying to do is find the sweet spot of what size of garden I want to have. Some of you have heard me kind of, I've been thinking about maybe I want to start a garden someplace else, or I want a different kind of garden, and that's all true. And it's because I want to hit just that sweet spot of the size of a garden that's just right for me right now at this stage of my life. It's not too much, it's not too little, it just hits just that right sweet spot that will enable me to have not only the garden that I want, but also meet my objectives. I want to have things that I can cut. I want to have things that I can cook with, those types of things, but that also are on a scale that I want. I want to work a certain amount in the garden, but I also want to do some other things. So let me know your thoughts on that too, what you think your sweet spot might be. When I was younger, my sweet spot was I wanted a much larger garden. Now I have other interests that I have. I still am passionate about gardening, but I want a different kind of garden. So let me know what your thoughts are on that. You can see over here that some of the bulbs are starting to come up in these pots, and the squirrels have had a little bit of their way digging in these, but not too much. And these are covered, but look, Stuart, all those are starting to come up too. So I am just in a kind of wait and see mode because I just don't know what the weather is going to do and how that is going to affect performance in the garden. One thing I do know is that the most reliable of all of my plants, I think, is this Chinese snowball viburnum. And look at all of those buds, Stuart. I know this is your favorite thing in my garden, and the most commented on thing in my garden. And look at those. There've got to be hundreds of buds that are getting ready to come into their own. Buds first, flowers first, and then the leaves will come out a little bit later. So that's just kind of what's going on in this Wednesday walkabout, things I'm thinking about, what the biggest secret to gardening is. It's getting things established, what challenges we have in that regard. And then also my second thing is, what is the sweet spot of the size of garden that you want to have that will enable you to groom it and maintain it to your own varying degrees of perfectionism. I like to have a very tidy, well-clipped garden. If I have one that's too large, I won't be able to maintain it according to kind of my own standards, but everybody is different, and I'm kind of curious about that now. What size of garden is the sweet spot for you? So there you go. That is your Wednesday walkabout, and I think my biggest key to gardening success, and that's getting things established. Well, here's my outfit du jour on kind of a chilly day. Well, Stuart said that it was 47 in his car when he got here, but I anticipate it will heat up a little bit more as the day progresses. I've got on, but it's very sunny, so I've got on some Ray-Ban aviators, my earrings that Stuart was chiding me for, and you guys have commented too, that I go like this, but then you still can't see my earrings. Can you see them now?
We can see them.
Okay, good. I'm so glad you could see them. These are just great big circular earrings. I can't remember where I got them. I've had them for years. I especially like to wear them in the summertime. My jacket is Ralph Lauren via Goodwill. So this is one of my purchases. I just loved it. I loved the leather detailing on it. It looked really expensive, and consequently it had to be mine. I bought it, and then I spent twice as much having it altered as I did on the jacket itself. But I really, really love it, and it's got that kind of Ralph Lauren-y vibe that I like. My top is just from Target. My bracelets are just an assemblage of different ones. This one my husband got me in Mexico, I think a number of years ago. It was on one of his trips, and the other's just an assortment of different things. This wonderful ring always reminds me of that expression from a book, Trapped in the Amber of the Moment. And this beautiful ring belonged to my mother-in-law. My skirt is just a knit skirt, and it's so comfy, you guys. I got this at Goodwill also. My belt is compliments of my kiddos. This belonged to my boys. And my boots are Land's End. And I've had these for years. So Stuart, did I get everything? Sometimes I forget.
We even saw the earrings.
Okay, you even saw the earrings. So there you go. There's my outfit of the day.